Do you have like a black pen I can use? Mine died while over here.
I do. I've been
really into just black pen.
Let's see. That one's kind of small. Microns? How do you feel about microns?
I don't like them as much because I always end up like smushing the tip in.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. I've never had that problem. I
try not to, but...
when it just happens. Yeah. I just feel like when I use microns, my art always, like, tends toward this certain style because the tip is so small. And I realize that I don't really like the style that I do. I'm like, this is just... I don't like it.
I think my favorite is just a ballpoint pen because you can get like light and dark, but I've been really into just straight.
I think for the most part, Andy has gotten me to the point where I do really like Energels.
Yeah.
They're just so like silky and good. So I like Energels, and then I like, hold on. I need to find one now. It's okay, this is good ASMR. Oh, yeah. Like a ballpoint, like a paper mate.
Yeah.
Because these you can do like shading.
Yeah.
Like you can make the pen strokes really light.
Yeah, I just use whatever, like, what is this?
So those are really nice.
As well as worship conference.
I'm kind of really into those. But,
I like the way this sounds.
It sounds really nice, right? I like... That's nice. Oh my goodness.
We just get a live stream of the conference.
We're also watching.
We're part of it.
There's
there's
oh my goodness. That is so fun and silly. Okay, well, welcome back to Whistle the Feast. Today we have on the podcast Miss Maida Jaspersen. Mrs. Maida Neville. So I got, out of the 3 words in it, I got 2 of them wrong.
You got 1 right.
So, but I did get 1 right. So I'll just say this is Maida.
Hi, this is Maida. And we also have Norah Kratz, Miss Norah Kratz on the podcast.
And that's it. It's just us 2. They let us loose in the podcast studio. They gave us a fob and an SD card.
We'll see what happens.
And we're wreaking havoc.
We've been recording this whole time.
Yeah. Yes, we have. That's great. I wasn't sure if you saw me click it.
I didn't.
Good. That was the idea. I got her. That was really slick. Today we're probably going to have
Probably just going to chit-chat.
We're just going to talk with you guys. We each have a warm drink in a little mug, and we each have our sketchbooks out. So you're going to hear some...
A little bit of drawing, a little bit of
drawing, because we think that it helps us think more.
And kind of opens up your brain.
Ideas. Yeah, opens up our brain. And this also is very special because I have not seen Maida in, well, at this point, I saw you probably a month ago or so because...
Yeah, a couple weeks ago. But before that...
Before that, I hadn't seen her in...
Months. Like
8 or 9 months.
9 and a half to... I think it was 9 months.
Something like that because she was...
Because I moved to Thailand.
Crazy.
And you didn't move to Thailand with me.
I did not. I proceeded to stay in Minnesota for some reason.
Be a good student and go to school.
What possessed me, but I did move forward with staying in Mankato, Minnesota, at this lovely, lovely school.
Which is, a good place.
And I'm very happy that I am here. We were talking. We've already spent like half the day together, and earlier we were having a really nice conversation in a fairly similar context that we thought we should probably just pick up. This is probably going to be all over the place because it is very much
ready for some scatter.
We just want to catch up and talk about what we want to talk about and explore ideas together. So, okay, so the topic of conversation that we were having in the coffee shop kind of revolved around something that I've been thinking about and that you added to very, easily. Of course, because we have the same...
Because we have the same brain.
Yeah, our brains are copy-paste. Of this idea... I'll start at the beginning. Also, these are all, my own, ideas, so it's probably not going to be very, ordered or anything. But
keep going.
that humans have systems of input and output, right? Like we take in information or events or stuff like that, and that's our input. And then we have methods of output, because you can't just like keep all that in. And
maybe explode if you did that.
Exactly. And we can't help but be influenced. Do you know what I mean? Like humans cannot help but be like touched and changed by the world around them. So yeah, we have systems of input and output, and especially for someone like an artist, I think they're really interesting people because usually that output is very obvious.
It's really concrete. Like
for some people, it's not at all. Like for some people, you can't even tell in conversations, which I think is one of the most basic forms of output, probably, right? Is having a conversation with someone you can tell.
It's maybe the most common, yeah.
Or yeah, the most common form of output. You can tell like, oh, this person's like not happy today. That means that there's been some like negative input, like that kind of thing. And I think for a visual artist, that's really cool because it's a really complex form of output and it's not that common. And so usually that's pretty cool to see. And I was specifically thinking about how technology, I think, affects maybe what happens in between the input and output.
Yeah, like the processing.
Yes, I think that's kind of where we're like at, because I was thinking about, I was like enjoying a walk the other day and it had just rained and I was by some, lilac bushes, I think, and they smelled amazing and the rain had fallen on the flowers and on the leaves and I was brushing my hands against them and thinking like, I can tell that this is a beautiful moment. Like, I know that this is beautiful. What do I think about? Like, what do I do now? It felt like there was this weird disconnect between what was happening to me and what I thought about it, and from what I thought about it to what I do now. And that doesn't sound, on the surface level, like something that's attached to technology. But I think that the media we consume determines specifically the pacing of our thoughts, and I think the pacing of thought really, really affects the output, I think. Because, thought is processing, right? And so how processing works probably affects the output. And so specifically, I'm talking about the fact that a lot of the media that people are consuming these days are like really little videos, like short videos. And so I think that controls my pace of thought as far as when I'm seeing images or taking them in, or just like seeing my hands and these lilac bushes, and I'm thinking, after a certain amount of time, like I hit this wall of it feels like weirdly like my thoughts, because of what media I'm consuming, have started to become segmented. I was telling Maida, like, it feels like my brain is saying, okay, make what you're thinking about into a video. Now make the video shorter. Make it shorter. Of like, I'm trying to match the pacing of my thought to what the input is. And I wonder if this is kind of, an effective technology that we don't, or a media that we don't talk about that much, but that I think is really interesting. I also just recently listened to a podcast on internal dialogue and how intensely difficult it is for people to study. Because how do you study someone's internal mind? And then it's one of those things that, like, once you start watching it, it's like, oh, we need to study this dark room. Let's shine a flashlight into it. Immediately by studying it, you've ruined the thing itself. Do you know what I mean? Okay. Or that's also a problem. I think this is completely different. But I think that's the same thing with, like, quantum physics. Is the stuff that they're trying to study, the second that they start looking at it, it's different because of the act of looking at it. There's also, I think, that's a paradox or something. That's like a named event of the act of studying something changes it.
That, like, kind of ruins the studying of it.
Exactly. But, back on topic. So, I think that, media, or what we see people, media affects how we pace our thoughts, and therefore, like, what output we have, which I think is really interesting. And then we were kind of talking about how that spans over so much more like, if that's true, if the pacing of media affects the pacing of our thoughts and therefore what we create, then shouldn't we be able to kind of go back in time and correlate, okay, what is the pace of media and what is the kind of media that people are consuming?
Like go back in history, like look back.
Yeah, and compare that to what are people creating. And obviously you can't really do as much. What's the pace of people's thoughts? But I think that would be interesting to talk to someone about. Do you know what I mean? So if we talk about specifically if you look at times when maybe the pace of media has sped up, like the printing press or something like that, and then you look at what are people creating.
Yeah, what kind of things people are writing, or like
when was it
painting?
15?
I don't know. I had to memorize that once in 5th grade.
I feel like I did too.
I know Gutenberg made it.
I know, we know Gutenberg Press, but I think it's,
1440.
Okay, so if we're thinking about 1440,
yeah, that's
as we're moving into a massive period of artistic, the Renaissance is like, what are the official dates for the Renaissance? What do they line that up with? Because I know it was beginning in the early or the mid 1400s, and then if we get into the 1500s, then it's really...
It says, generally considered to have begun in Italy in the 14th century and ended around 1600.
Okay, so there we have it. It's a little bit...
Yeah, it's like 1500.
Okay, so if we talk about the pacing of media as it speeds up, we kind of have this, like, explosion of a different kind of art, I think. Mm-hmm. And it would be interesting to kind of try to deep dive exactly what is happening there. But I think, yeah, more interesting, just like, how does this apply to me, and like, why... It's something right now that I feel like I've been thinking about kind of negatively, of that the pacing of my thoughts are affected like that, because I want to be able to have thoughts that are very, they can be fast when they need to be, but...
Yeah. I think, because, well, you can kind of affect, or you can kind of control, like, what media you're consuming, you know? Like, you can watch slower movies, maybe to kind of combat that, or, like, read big books that take place, you know, that, like, kind of draw you through, like, a long story where things are interconnected. Maybe balance out some of, like, the, you know, like, reels and, like, TikToks and things that are very quick. Like, I don't think the quick is always bad, but I think it's helpful in some situations, but in a lot of situations it kind of takes your attention off of the present and, like, appreciating that.
I don't know, like, what else do you think? Do you think that's real? What are your, like, thoughts?
I think that might be real. I think a lot about, like, what you take in definitely affects what you put out. I've never thought of it in terms of pacing before you brought that up. I've always thought about, like, content. Like, if you're consuming... There's, like, it might be an Austin Kleon quote where he says, like, garbage in, garbage out. Anyways, like, I think about input in terms of, like, quality and also content and, like, maybe, like, the type of thinking. Like, if you want to be doing more conceptual work, like, it's good to focus on that in other people's work. Or if you want to be making things, like, with really intentional colors, like, starting to pay attention to and, like, intentionally consume things that you really like the color palettes of. But I've never thought about it in terms of pacing, but I think it's probably true because, like, input is not just the writing or the paintings or, you know, whatever type of work it is that you're consuming. It's also, like, kind of a cultural thing, you know, like, your family culture affects you. Yeah. Or, like, the culture of the country that you grow up in affects you. And just kind of, like, the nature of the world around you. I think a lot about, I think about the Sagrada Familia a lot, just anyways. I think about that church all the time. I'm obsessed
with you.
Yes, almost every time I'm in a church singing, I am thinking about the ceiling of the Sagrada Familia, because I love that.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm looking for something. That is crazy. Should we let him in?
Yeah, maybe we should.
We should probably let him in.
Wait, I gotta open the door. Do you want to come join for a minute?
Yeah, you want to come yap with us for a little bit?
Are we yapping?
Yeah, we're
yapping.
I'll finish up my thought and then you can join.
Is this Whistle the Feast or Whistle the Foost?
This is... This is Whistle the Feast.
Wait, what number is he?
You goofy little... I think he's number 2. He's 2, okay.
There you go.
Good.
I was saying, What was I saying? Oh, about
You were
input.
thinking about input.
I was thinking about the Sagrada Familia. Like, I always
Testing one, testing.
And when you feel comfortable, you just jump right in. Okay.
So I was thinking about the Sagrada Familia because I love that church. I think it's so cool. And what I've learned a little bit about Gaudi, the guy that made it, and thinking about input and output, like, he as a child grew up very sick. Like, he was sick all the time, and kind of the solution was, like, let him be outside and, like, get fresh air, but, like, he couldn't really play with other kids or anything. He was very isolated. And so it would just be him and, you know, like, the grass and the bugs and the flowers and the sky. And he spent so much time, like, taking that in and really, like, getting so familiar with it. And it reflects in his architecture. Like, you see these buildings, and instead of being based on, like mathematical formulas or, like, symmetry, they're based on how plants, like, support themselves in asymmetrical ways and in, like, very natural curves and things. And I just think that that's such an interesting input because it's so blatantly reflected in the things that he makes. He is, I love this guy. He has a chapel where, like, the basement has pillars in it, and they're, like, or is it the basement or the outside? Either way, there's pillars, and they're, like, super slanted instead of being straight up and down. And that's because he saw an old man walking with a cane, and he was, like, leaning on the cane, and the cane is, like, almost at, like, a 45-degree angle, and he realized, like, that's supporting that, like, entire man's body weight. And then, you know, by, like, through observation, through the input of just the everyday world, like,
that application. Yeah,
you get that output that is surprising, even though it's, like, it's just honest. It's just what he's seeing.
I think that is one of the most delightful, like, cleanest, sleekest, cleverest things about the brain ever. That, like, how do y'all not think there's a God? That the brain works in that way, that even the most base level understanding that we don't even have to be consciously remembering or thinking about things that we don't have to be consciously thinking about the input for it to affect the output. I think that is brilliant. Like you were saying, that if you want the certain color palette or style of a painter, all you have to do to improve your understanding of that and to let that influence your output is to just look at it and to experience that. And it's so, I don't know, that's so cool. And I think that connects to another thing that we were talking about this morning, which is kind of an icky way to describe it, but, like, the incestuous nature of human creation that why are you pointing at me? We're always creating things in a way that affects everyone else.
Yeah, like, we create things, humans create things that affect humans, which then spurs them to create things that affect humans.
Right.
Which then, like, we continue
Right. Exactly.
influencing each other.
Which is so cool.
I feel like often with things I make, like, I don't even notice I don't fully realize the influence until, like, way after it's done.
And then you can look back.
Like, I'll shoot a scene in my film and then, like, a year later be like, oh, this was totally affecting me. I didn't even realize it.
That's where that came. 'Cause it's hard sometimes because you're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see what your influences are because, like, you're being influenced.
So, like, the unconscious input is probably a massive amount, is, like, integrally crucial to the creator to a point that we don't even understand it. Also, that other voice that you just heard is Colin Neville.
I'm here now.
Colin Neville's here.
Yay.
So it's a real party now. He does not have a hot drink or a sketchbook.
Nope.
No.
But he's welcome to
There's a
use
water
this
fountain
sketchbook.
outside, and we can get him a crayon and a piece of paper. So he'll be okay.
I'm just here.
He's just here, y'all. Which is cool when we're talking about, anyways, when we're talking about humans creating in the, humanity cannot escape the context of itself, essentially, especially in the bounds of creation. I think another thing we talked about this morning is this quote from John Baptiste, who is a fantastic creator, but he's a musician, and he's very, very good at it. Especially, he does a lot of jazz and blues, and it's really good. One of the videos I watched from him, he said something like, we dance to the sound of technology. And so, once again, if we talk about pacing, he kind of describes the pace or the sound of the music of a certain time period usually matches the forefronts of human technology at that time. So he specifically used the example that the blues shuffle is the sound of the train. And he kind of demonstrated that as he was playing the piano, of like this kind of back and forth, like lilting rhythm. And it was so cool. And I think that's another thing that if we take it, okay, how do we apply this to other parts of history, and how do we, I don't know. It's just this massive, like, pattern of, yeah.
It's like, it's those subconscious influences, which then I think, like, people being influenced by those things and then making things that are influenced by them, and then those things that they made influencing more people. I feel like that's a big part of where, like, a culture comes from and why cultures are different. Because you're being influenced by, like, different pacing and different flavors of things.
Right. It's like these bubbles of influence of people constantly creating and then influencing each other and then creating and then influencing.
Yeah, and then often I think, like, that was such a freeing moment for me was when, like, I was told, like, nothing's truly original. Like, it's we're all borrowing from stuff. And often, like, the most original seeming stuff, like, quote unquote original, is like when I take just an amalgamation of all my influences and, like, Frankenstein them together into, like, this new thing. Like, what if I took an influence from this party I went to once, like that memory with this movie I saw once, with this cool sky I saw once, and just, like, mishmashed into this crazy thing.
Yeah. Because nobody else has the exact same experiences and influences as you.
Yeah.
Like, each person has their own.
And that's why often, like, many filmmakers will say, like, don't get a job as a filmmaker right away. Like, get a job just somewhere else, because then you can get, like, a crazy way of life influences. Yeah. Because often you're going to meet, like, crazy people. You're going to, like, have wild experiences that, yeah, you can, like, get that from watching films or looking at other art. But, like, if you just go out and live life, and that's where the sauce is going to be, you know?
The sauce.
The sauce.
Of, like, oh, that's so cool. I mean, it's like our brains gathering input, which is just, I don't know. God is so cool and awesome that he would, I don't know, gift us with the ability to do that. And of course we are creating God's image. Like, we are a mirror of our creator. So it's cool to think that, I don't know, this, like, beautiful, like, system of collection and then scattering again is, I don't know, something that we can see and something that we can, like, consciously track, like you were talking about with your movies, of, like, being able to track, like, oh, now I can see this was my input, no matter how subconscious it was. This was my input, and now I can see this is how it affected my output, like, what I'm creating. Colin, earlier we were talking about, in the context of kind of input and output, how, like, current media affects the processing of that. So I was talking about,
and the pacing.
Sometimes the pacing. Thank you. Sometimes when I'm thinking about things, or I'm looking at things, or I'm enjoying moments, it's this, like, I realize that I'm kind of pacing my thoughts in the style of, right now, a very short video, because so much of the media we consume are little videos, like a Instagram reel or a TikTok video. And I tried to not be on those that much, but it still, like, affects us so much. I found what I wrote directly after it. Yeah, just, like, beauty or the realization of something as beautiful or inspirational, sandwiched by the thought of, like, what do I do now? What do I think of now? Oh, that's cool. What do I do now? I think I'm trying to, like, because of what I consume, of, like, tiny little short bites of information,
You're trying to make it fit into a short amount of time and then move on to something else.
I think the media is training, the input is training me exactly to fit into this preset of thought or beauty, and so I'm trying to fit experiences into that.
I think that happens to me with arguments or persuasions.
Okay, yeah. I was wondering, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. Because I think when I envision, I'm sitting alone and I'm fake arguing with someone in my head. I'm thinking of the most succinct way of making my point across, because I feel like I can get the point across in maybe 3 hours of blabbering. But it's okay, if I almost you're scrolling on Instagram Reels, what's the succinct way to get this point across? But I often feel then I don't feel fully as satisfied by that. I feel like obviously the more passionate, just the lengthier blabbery it's going to get.
Yeah.
So maybe that is very interesting.
It takes away a factor of exploration even. I don't know.
You're looking for it to be finished quickly, and so you're not kind of fully exploring the potential there.
Right.
Well, the argument, it's I don't want the person I'm arguing with to swipe to the next thing.
Oh, right. You feel like you only have their attention for a short amount of time.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Is this all going to come back around to attention? Because I do feel like what I'm saying is a little bit talking about, I feel like we've heard it so many times, Gen Z has a terrible attention span. And I think it's probably true. I've definitely met a lot of people who are I can't watch a show anymore because my attention span is just not good enough to be able to watch a show or a movie. And I mean, I think that's what that is. And I think that's what happens with me too, is thinking I need to hold an attention span, even if sometimes the attention span that you're holding is your own, of I'm trying to make this thing interesting to me. Oh my goodness, that's it. You guys are so smart. It's framing something in a way.
We didn't say anything.
I'm framing something in a way to hold your own attention span. We're all sick in the head, you guys. This is crazy.
You're welcome. There.
We just need to give people a movie watch list of nice slow movies.
Yeah. The Darjeeling Limited.
The Darjeeling Limited. That's not necessarily a super slow movie, but that's
but it's so good. I love that. I just watched that movie and I really like it.
Rolling back to, I want to go back to the nature of the influence conversation. So I heard an argument regarding AI a few days ago that I don't necessarily agree with, but I want to present it to you guys and see what you react to it.
Yeah.
Is that, obviously the thing is that AI is trained on everything, basically.
Yeah.
And it takes all that input and then outputs. And, people will say that's plagiarism. But then another person I've heard argue is that, well, do we do that? Because we input a bunch of things and then output.
Yeah, but I see that because we do input things, or we do take things in and then output them. But for us, it's partly about processing life, and it's kind of a necessary process to be a human and continue to function in the world, is you have to do something with everything that you see and hear. Maybe not every little thing, but you have to, at least to me, it feels like I have to put those things somewhere.
Right.
I experience things, and I gotta put it in a conversation or put it down on paper, whether it's journaling or drawing or painting. But for AI, that isn't then it's not actually it doesn't need that time to process things and to quote unquote move forward in your life.
The imperfect processing as opposed to the algorithmic output.
Yeah, making the processing more efficient isn't beneficial because we need the process of the processing more than we need the end result.
Right.
I don't need a finished sketchbook as badly as I need a blank page to sketch on.
Interesting. That was a beautiful thing to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Maida was saying. Especially you also said something about the imperfection of the system. I think what makes it okay for humans is that we're not that good at it at all. to something as simple as we forget things really easily. We can't remember. We could never consume all of the information on one topic. And so because we're bad at it, we can't operate in as broad of a scope as like AI can, which I think makes things like way more interesting, and also then we can build on each other, which is always good.
Yeah. This is going to go back to an Austin Kleon thing because I love his blog. So he talked about, like, it was a band that he really liked as a kid or something. I'm pretty sure this was him. And he wanted them, like, he wanted more music by them. And so he would just make up, like, he made up an album for them. And by doing, maybe this was him or maybe he was talking about some other artist that did this. By doing that, like, created a new original album, like, quote-unquote original, you know? And, like, by being... I'm really losing my trains of thought.
No, you're good.
Sorry, this is what I get for waking up at 6 a.m. maybe.
No, you're good.
You're talking about the band thing?
Yeah, but what were you saying before that?
I was talking about experience is the third factor. Or the imperfect processing.
The imperfect processing. Yeah, that, like, you didn't actually know what that band would make. And if you had put it into AI, it would probably sound different because this is just this kid's imagination of, like...
Right.
Which is ultimately, like, that's probably the kid making the coolest songs he can come up with, which is, like, such a limited pool compared to what AI would come up with. But isn't that so much more, like, fulfilling to that person? Right. And more interesting, arguably.
Yeah, I mean, in that situation, if you had asked AI to do that, probably what it would have come up with would have been closer to what the band actually sounds like, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, then that wouldn't have been new, which newness is interesting, right? So it's the accuracy. AI is hard because when we're thinking about it, we have to dethrone accuracy as the goal or as a really good thing. Accuracy can be good, but sometimes in the context of AI, maybe we have to say the point is not to be accurate. The point is to be human is to be interesting. No offense, AI.
Because ultimately the AI companies are trying to get more perfect. Like, that's the whole thing, is like number of fingers, like, can we get as perfect as possible, or as accurate, you said, as accurate. And I feel like, as of late especially, my favorite art is the least accurate. Not the least accurate, but like just wild as opposed to accurate.
Yeah, so what was your opinion of that when you saw that? Like, what did you think about
the argument?
Yeah, of don't we do that, you know?
I thought it was a fair point to make in some way, because we are very much, like, in a ways, like, part of, like, our influences make a big part of us, but I guess I don't have words for it yet, what the third factor is in that humans have. It's like the spirit working in us, or it's
you should talk about that more when you're talking about third factor. Like, what are the other two? Are you talking about, like,
the other two, input and output? Yeah.
So, like, that middle.
Yeah, that middle.
Isn't that interesting?
Which is what Maida kind of talked about with the processing. Like, there's something uniquely human that I don't have words for yet.
Right.
But
we should explore that a little bit more. Yeah.
I feel like emotion might be a part of it. Like, we're not a factory. Like, it can't, for a person, it can't be, like, impersonal. You know, like, everything is affecting you in some way or another, whether you know it or not, whether you want it or not. Like,
yeah.
And like, AI can weed out if it doesn't want influences from something.
Right.
And it also doesn't have any emotional attachment to anything. So, like, because I think part of what is awesome about people is that they love certain things so much, sometimes for seemingly no reason. Like, they'll just be really obsessed with, like, a certain animal or, like, a certain kind of music or a color or something. And so, like, sometimes they make decisions, say in a piece or something, like, if they really like purple, maybe they're going to make part of the composition purple, even though nobody else would think, like, that makes sense. Like, that object is not purple, the mood doesn't fit purple, but, like, because they really like that, they're going to put it in. And sometimes that's more charming.
But it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so an AI maybe would have a little bit more.
AI wants it to make sense.
Right, it doesn't make sense. And I think maybe a way to try to figure out what that aptly named, third factor is to, try to compare it to, what's a thinking system that does not have that. And, do you guys think, so we think, AI doesn't have that. Does AI go directly, it's input to output? Does it have that third factor? Does it have, a processing?
I feel like if anything for the third factor, it would maybe be people, adjusting the
third factor being the
search criteria.
The filters
keywords
and the prompts.
or whatever.
The filters and prompts, which is huge.
Which is coming from people.
Which is coming from the person.
Yeah.
So the actual machine itself cannot have a third factor without the interaction with a human, kind of, which is pretty cool. This is kind of an aside, but one thing that I really appreciate and love about AI is that I think people have spoken about before the loss of media literacy, on the internet of you guys are misunderstanding. You have got to be misunderstanding things on purpose because no one cannot, people online just not being able to think critically about things. I think AI and the discussions mainly that AI is causing are forcing people to you have to think critically about art to be able to join a discussion about AI. You have to think you have to consider these really broad questions that I think we handle and probably we come around to in every art critique ever of what is art?
What does this mean?
What
Why
makes
do we do
art
this?
good? Why do we create art? And for those people who have never had those discussions, maybe if they want to talk about AI, automatically it's you don't have a choice. You have to think about what makes art important.
That's very
human art.
Even on this will be under AI videos too, but I've seen a few actual real videos of people and just the lighting's kind of weird and maybe their skin wasn't captured completely perfectly, and people in their comments will be is this AI? They'll be extra focusing in on what's authentic and what's quality.
Not. People are paying attention, which is cool. It's there are a lot of things about AI that are kind of scary, but it's also cool that it's it has people's attention in more way than one. Like Colin was saying, it forces people to look closer at things and think about, okay, this looks weird, which means that it's also forcing them to think about what makes something like a movie shot that is not AI, what makes that look normal? How can we tell that it's normal? Yeah. How can we tell this art is human? And then that leads to these other bigger, beautiful questions that we get to handle when we're talking about art. So that's kind of an aside about AI, but I don't know. It's interesting stuff. We kind of live in a crazy time. So, yeah.
What Maida was talking about the leaning into things you love, you talked about, or with the purple example. I just want purple because I just have such an emotional.
Because it brings you some joy.
Yeah,
or something.
I feel because my recent film I just shot, that was kind of the thesis of it. It was here's all these influences I love a lot, and here's all these things that I just really care about, and I'm going into it knowing it's not going to be perfect. The goal is not perfect. It's just what makes me passionate and happy. And as a result, it was
and excited.
Yeah, the most fun few shooting days I've had in a while. And I feel especially when, as artists, you can get very hypercritical of ourselves and get so caught up in the, the logistics of what will work, will this work, will this work? I feel for a while I was in a kind of a pit where it was just I lost the plot a little bit, and I had to get back into the love of the game type shooting, where it was just purely for the fun of it and letting go of that a little bit. I don't know if you guys struggle with that in a way or not. If not, that's okay.
Do you?
I think it's a little bit different for me. Because for me, a lot of times I'm aware that people are going to be looking at my work, and then being able to let go of that. So I'll still have fun making things, knowing that people will look at them. But I produce different things if I think nobody is ever going to see this sheet of paper, and moving to Thailand has given me more of that because there's less people that I know around. And so I'm less likely to run into people and show them my sketchbook and things, which I love doing that. I love letting people look through my sketchbook. but it does sometimes apply like a little bit of a pressure that like I have less of that now, and as a result, like my artwork has changed. And I think that's a result of a lot of things like culture shock and just like a lot of big life changes, but it's kind of nice. Like, I think art changes when you relieve some pressure from yourself in some way, whether it's like being self-critical or like trying to be like approachable, readable in that way. Mm-hmm. Like relieving that pressure. I think every artist has stuff in them that like they know they want to make that, but there's usually some sort of barrier, whether it's like perfectionism or it's them wondering if people will understand, or it's just a fear that like they won't do it well enough or something. Like when you kind of get out of that, I feel like awesome things happen.
No, I think you kind of like, I think you said it. I think that's really hard for me, specifically getting out of the mindset that other people are going to see this, because I think I create very few things without the thought, most of the time subconsciously, like I'm not consciously thinking about this, that other people will see this.
It's in the back of your mind.
Which usually doesn't bother me very much, because, I mean, when we're talking about output, part of the thing about being a visual artist is that that thing endures. And if we're talking about other forms of output, like a conversation, like that thing doesn't really like endure that much.
Unless it's a podcast.
Unless it's a podcast. Beep, beep, beep. So when we're talking about like, that's a form of output that like really stays, and which I think always prompts the thought in my head of like, okay, it's sticking around. Probably you will show this to someone.
Somebody
at some point,
may see this, yeah.
Which is not always a bad thing, but I think there have been very few times, if any, that I've created with like the thought of like, no one is going to see this, so I'd like to get better at that, just to see what happens, or to not really care about. I think when I think about it, it's more like I want to, you know, as far as painting goes, like I want to have a reference photo, or I know that I can create without a solid concept or without any concept, but it seems almost like a waste, if that makes sense, because I have solid concept, or like I have things that I'm interested in and want to create things about, and so it feels like, why would you create something about nothing when you could create something about something?
Yeah.
But then back to the influence conversation, it's about something secretly maybe, and you just don't know it yet.
Right. Yeah, that's true. The amount of times that I've done just like mindless sketches in my sketchbook, and then later I look back and I'm like, whoa, I was like processing something. But you just don't realize it at the time because you're in the middle of it, and you're just drawing like whatever is obvious, or like whatever comes out, like. And then so later you look back and you're like, oh, I'm in a different place now.
Like, maybe that's kind of a way to tap into those subconscious influences, which is, oh my goodness, that is so interesting.
Is it possible to make something about completely nothing?
Ooh, I don't think so.
Probably not, right?
I feel like, can you think about completely nothing? Like,
sometimes.
Sit down and...
Sometimes I think I do, but...
Yeah.
I think sometimes I'm just sitting there and it's TV static for me. But maybe there's probably actual stuff going on in there.
Right, in the
my brain's still telling my body to breathe air.
Yeah, and there are all kinds of stuff that, like, especially the more I learn about, I've learned about in some communications classes, and then in some, I listen to a lot of podcasts because I just clean stuff all day, so I just listen to podcast after podcast. And when we're talking about, like, thinking about nothing, like, I really don't. I'm at the point where I'm like, it's simply not possible. Even if we break away from, like, your brain telling your body to still be alive, if we say that doesn't count. Like, that's not involuntary. Like, that's involuntary. You're not. If we discredit that, there's actually probably still... your brain is having some subconscious thoughts that are not even about just keeping your body alive, but it's just forms of processing that your brain is always in that third factor of it's always working on stuff. Like I said earlier, I just listened to a podcast about studying the internal dialogue of the brain, so like you talking to yourself, or like how you do that in your brain, which is, like I was telling Maida, super hard to study, because once you
study it, it's like
well, now you're thinking about saying the right thing.
Now you're aware of it.
Exactly, now you're aware. So it's really hard to study, and they're not really that good at it yet. But they've kind of discovered this thing where, like, some people will have, you know, and I'm sure you guys have your own things of, like, some people will have multiple people having conversation in their head about things, which I think I've experienced sometimes. Sometimes people have, like, when you really dig into it, usually the way they would study it is they would condition a person to be used to hearing these beeps throughout the day. So they would have a couple of weeks where they would just carry something with them that would just beep. And so they're conditioning their brain to not be startled or unused to this beeping so that their internal dialogue would be completely normal. Even when this thing starts beeping. And then when they were studying it, they would say every time it would beep, they would say, okay, like, capture that moment in time. What was the internal dialogue during that time? And then since the brain was mostly used to it, they would be able to say, okay, when it beeped, I was thinking about this. And they found out that most of the time people were usually grappling with multiple different, like, there was like an image of this, and they were thinking about this concept and also this. Of there could be like 5 different things at once that are happening in someone's brain that they're processing or thinking about, or is seemingly just nothing, like, that is just there for some reason. Which is a completely an aside, like, kind of a tangent, but so no, I don't think you can think about nothing.
That's like, sometimes you ask me, Colin, you're like, what are you thinking about? And I'm like, how do I even translate this? Like, how do I even put this into words? Because it's so mushy up there. Like, it's kind of images, but it's also not. And there's, like, words, but, like, not. And it's kind of sequential, but not. Like, there's just so much balancing
You've asked
happening.
us this question before on the fire, and I think it's such a good question. Like,
how do you
guys
picture your
think?
thoughts?
How do you
think?
Yeah. I'm curious.
I think if I'm just, like, in a, like, just alone with my thoughts, so, like, a string, like, one thing leads to another thing, leads to another thing, and then often, like, I'll get from, like thinking about a basketball team I like to frogs in the rainforest, and then I'm like, and I'll stop myself and go, wait, how did I get here? And then I'll go back and try to, like, find the links and be like, oh, that's how it led to this, led to this, led to this.
Yeah. Do you think is it usually words or is it pictures?
I think when I'm going to sleep, I'm thinking sentences in my head, like I'm saying words in my head. I think that helps me fall asleep.
Is it just one person?
Yeah, it's just me.
Is there ever a context in which you have more than one person?
Sometimes I'm talking to an audience.
Oh, you're, like, giving a presentation.
That's so interesting.
That's cool.
Like going to bed, I'll just be like, I'm gonna, like, falling asleep, I'm gonna rank coolest football jerseys, and I'll be, like, in front of an audience. With, like,
you're on YouTube. You have the tier list.
Yeah, it'll be like a tier list.
You're like, hi guys, welcome back.
Yeah. But then if like I'm out and about, it's just me, I think. Or if I'm like working on a piece of art and I'm trying to think of critiques of it, I'm picturing like a colleague or a friend of mine.
Right. Also. Like helping you.
Yeah. Or sometimes if I'm in a bad headspace, it's hurting me.
Right.
Not helping.
Sometimes. Is it always your voice?
Sometimes it's like podcasters I listen to. Right. I acquire their voice.
That's so interesting. And then you also said before you go to bed, it's usually in sentences. Would you say during the day it is, or is it just?
No, it's not. Going to sleep is definitely the most like it's a full it's like a presentation going on. Yeah.
But like during the day, it's more just like thought. I guess.
Yeah. But then this goes back to what you're talking about with like how you think of things in like short form because of media you consume. Like now my internal thoughts are like being influenced by the media I consume.
Oh,
exactly.
Because if you're watching like tier lists and like presentations,
but now I am the tier list maker.
You're doing that.
Yeah.
I'm the final boss. I am the tier list. Rank things on me. On the college.
What about you guys?
Yeah. What you got, Maida?
I think sometimes if I really have to like sit and think about something, like I have to close my eyes and I picture things. It's almost like there's a little projector in my forehead and I picture things like right outside of my forehead. Like it's hovering in space.
I'll see her do this often.
Yeah. Like, and They can't see what I'm doing, but I'm closing my eyes and like concentrating. And that's for like really piecing together things or like thinking. But I think if I'm just thinking throughout the day, sometimes I'll think through like a sentence that I want to say before saying it, but then I'll think that it sounds too formal, so then I will end up not using the words that I spent forever composing because I don't want it to sound like I composed it.
Right.
So sometimes it's words. A lot of times, though, I think a lot of my thinking like happens in tandem with my hands, and like I think a lot while I'm sketching or while I'm journaling, and that is like this kind of abstract mix of like in my head and like on the paper. Like a lot of like concept work for illustrations or something. I'm sketching the whole time, and that's definitely more productive thinking than just thinking in my head.
Right.
Because you get some of it out and then you can react to it. And I think I just think better when my hands are moving. Like I like to knit, and I like to like I just fidget with things and stuff. So I feel like that it's like that takes up just enough of my brain to open up my brain to free like thinking and
Do you have a voice?
I think so, but I don't know if it's mine.
Or if it's
just like
I know
voice.
Sometimes when I'm thinking, like, as far as thoughts go, I definitely think there's, like, we're like, well, you either think in words or voice or pictures. Like, that's how it works. But I think there's probably a fourth option.
Pick your three.
Pick your three. It's gotta be one of these.
I mean, what else is there?
Thought processing tier list. There's only 3 to rank.
C tier.
C tier. And there's 3 of them. But I think there's probably a fourth option that's, thought. And it's just
it's
not
like
anything.
A weird mushy.
And you can say like, no, I was making connections and working, but I was not seeing anything. I wasn't hearing anything. I wasn't saying anything. It was just your brain working. Yeah. So is there ever more than one person?
No, I don't think of it as like people or like voices. Like it's all coming from me, and it's all like. But I'll maybe argue between like yourself. No, but I'll maybe like. Especially like in critique, like looking at a piece that I'm working on, I'll think about like, I'll kind of have a more critical self that's trying to like kind of play devil's advocate with the piece of like, well, what if somebody thought this, or what if somebody didn't understand this? But then I'll also have a side of myself that's like really emotionally invested in it and like just wants to leave it as it is and not make edits because I like it as it is. But then the critical part is like, well, this might need to change or this might need to change. But it still feels like both are maybe my voice.
Right. Do you have a different one? Like Colin said, his kind of changes as he's like more tired or like as he's falling asleep. Do you think that changes at all for you?
I think when I get... different kinds of tired. Like when I'm getting socially tired, like I just... haven't had alone time in a long time, it gets a lot harder to know my own thoughts. Like, it's like I can't hear my own thoughts because I'm full of, like, everybody else's conversation and things, and I'm just kind of, like, I end up just agreeing with people a lot because I don't have the space to find out what my own opinions are because I'm just, like...
true or not, right.
Yeah, I'm just, like, on the surface, and then I feel like when I have alone time to journal or to sketch, like, I can get deeper. I almost picture my brain like a lake sometimes. And sometimes I get in this place where I'm stuck, like as if the lake is frozen over and I'm stuck on the surface, like up on the ice. I really dislike that feeling. Like I like to be able to get into the depths of the all the swooshy stuff. But I think like sleepy tired. There is a really nice state that's like between being asleep and awake where you're like falling asleep or just waking up where like I have almost zero grasp on reality in that state, and I will accept dreams as, like, equally as the actual reality of being in bed.
Yeah.
And, like, that's kind of a fun place to think, because kind of anything works.
Yeah.
I feel like I do some of my best brainstorming there, but then if I don't record it immediately, like, it's gone.
You forget it, yeah.
I just know it was good, but I don't know what it was.
No.
And then maybe it wasn't actually good.
Well, that's interesting stuff. I love learning about how the brain works.
How do you think, Norah?
I don't know. You know, we were talking about earlier today where I don't really like to put like I feel like thinking about how people think is scary because it feels hard to say like it's like this all the time because I don't think anyone's is ever like that all the time.
You don't want to constrain it.
But I think there's a lot of pictures. I think there are a lot of like images and they like will flash. I think it's also because I daydream a lot. And so that like affects, like really heavily affects how I think because if I'm essentially like watching a movie in my head, then also when I'm like experiencing things, it's going to be experienced like in the form of a movie or like images that like connect to that thing. Especially when I'm singing hymns in church, I feel like when I'm like, oh, you need to think about the words. We're in church, think about the words. Because I think your mom would always say that.
Yeah, that's definitely like a teacher thing.
Yeah,
like pay attention to the words
of the hymn.
Think about them.
Think about them. Think about
that was always hard for me. I remember like the Lord's Prayer, they'd be like, think about what this means. And I didn't know what a lot of the words meant. So I would just be thinking the words. And I was like, I'm thinking about them. And I was like, maybe that's what God wants me to do is like think about this word hallowed. And like, I don't know what that means, but I'm thinking about it.
It's like the Disney logo and how it always looked like a G, but you knew it was Disney.
You thought that too?
Yeah.
I thought I was the only one.
No original experience.
No one else.
I always thought that.
I was like 12. Wait a minute.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it wasn't Disney for some reason.
Okay.
And as a kid, you're just like, oh, I guess it's just like that for some reason.
Yeah, I was like, that must just be the symbol. That's just the symbol. Of like, in the Lord's Prayer, I was like, trespasses is just what you say. It doesn't actually mean anything.
It doesn't
That's just
make
how
sense
it
as
is.
a kid, yeah.
Right. And then I would see like no trespassing sign. I'm like, I heard that in the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
Y'all better not do
I know what that is.
It's like in Christmas or like Christmas service as a kid when you'd say like Quirinius was governor of Syria.
Quirinius was
and none of these kids know about the geopolitics of the time. They're just saying these words. It means nothing to them.
Yeah, they don't even know what they're saying. I'm literally like, I could be speaking in tongues right now. While Quirinius was governor of Syria.
Like everyone
went
their head.
Everybody thinks everyone went to his own town to register. I didn't know what a census was.
Yeah, like a what?
I was like, oh, they were going to register. If you were like, register, why did they have to do that? I would be like, I don't know.
They had to register.
That's why Jesus was born. They had to go register. Like, I didn't know what I was saying. Anyways, so while we're singing the hymn, I'm like, there are pictures that I'm thinking of that like match to the words, and then it's fun because in your mind you can just adjust like what you're saying like really fast because it's in your brain, and so it's like fun to like. So I think a lot of pictures, like I said, I daydream a lot, so I think that is also a form of like how I think about things. That I do have my own voice most of the time, but it's not all the time. It's only like sometimes when I'm thinking about certain things that I'll have my own voice, and sometimes I'm having a conversation with someone. And I agree, sometimes when I'm looking at artwork, it's like a mentor or someone else who like is essentially just like working through it with me of being like, is this good, is this bad? And then I also think when I'm problem solving especially, it feels like a web, kind of. Have you ever seen, like drawings of constellations, how like there are like lines between the stars, but there aren't actually lines in real life. That's what it feels like, is like I have an idea and then it's it feels like it's like going from thing to thing, and it becomes like this web, and that's how like I like connect ideas and stuff. And most of the time when it's in the context of a conversation, it usually feels like the other people in the conversation are like giving me like boosts to get to the next thing faster, which is probably why when we were talking earlier, I was like, oh, you guys are so smart, even though I have been, of course, yapping for the last 2 minutes on my own. Is because when I'm in the context of a conversation, everything like that you've said, it feels like it's getting me to the next idea so much faster than I usually can.
I like that constellation image, like the connecting
That's what
things across, even if they don't feel like actually tightly connected in other people's minds.
And then I feel like when I'm trying to grasp a concept, or when I'm studying for something and trying to understand a concept, it this is the image that I'm connecting to it. I don't actually see this. This is just what it feels like, if that makes sense. It's like it's like totally dark and I'm like molding something and I can feel parts of it and I like can't feel other parts. And as I understand more and more, the parts that I can't feel make the whole thing collapse. And so like when I'm pressing on one part, if I know like this is a corner but I don't know the rest of it, it'll collapse. And so as I learn more, I can keep like on feeling out parts and parts of it until it feels like, even though it's completely dark, I can throw this thing from like hand to hand and it doesn't collapse. And that feels like full understanding of the concept, so that if we're talking about something, we can apply it to something goofy like in Chem Art, we had to learn all about like the process of a fresco and stuff. If we're talking about learning about how a fresco works chemically, when I only have the information memorized, it feels like this, where I can touch it and it'll collapse. But when I know all the information and I know why and I can explain it, it feels like I can toss it from hand to hand. And you could ask me a question about the concept that isn't specifically information that I memorized, but because I understand it, then I can answer the question. Does that make sense?
So like, knowing the why of it, the how, like kind of having like a fully formed reason
grasp of it.
Okay.
Yeah, like you have your own knowledge.
Right. And it feels like that's when,
because when you understand the why it all works, it feels like it's your, like you have ownership of it, as opposed to just following a set of directions.
It feels like I can see the whole thing at once.
That's a really great way to put that, like the object. But I guess I was thinking about, like, Colin and I just did a presentation at a church, and it was very easy to go up and just talk about like what we're doing in Thailand. And like some presentations are very difficult, when it's like something you research but don't actually have personal knowledge of. Like it makes you nervous and you maybe trip over your words and like the whole thing is a very uncomfortable experience. But like when you really know a thing, it's so easy, like you said, to like throw it back and forth from one hand to the other. Like we could have answered questions on the spot. Like we could have taken the presentation and continued to talk longer than what we had planned. Like when you have that full understanding, you really can like play with it then and go so much further than
it's like
memorization.
Exactly. So I think it's a really good, like, it's a kind of a fun goal to have with like different concepts. And then if you collect so many of those, then you can kind of do that whole like constellation thing that I was talking about, where now you start to like connect like different ideas, or like I like to think of like parallel like play with them, of like comparing these two and finding patterns in them and connecting those ideas and stuff. I like connection. I think a lot in connection. I think
that makes a lot of sense for you.
But
I think people talk that way about like learning a language, like kind of similar to like there's a level where it's fragile and then there's a level where you can really play with it. Like there's kind of certain, they talk about different like plateaus of like, first you get over the hump of like just knowing some words, and like eventually it's like conversational, and then it's like being able to talk about abstract thought, and then there's like fluency, and I feel like what you're talking about of throwing like the object back and forth and being able to feel it is like fluency of the concept.
Right. Oh, that's
you're now
a great way
fluent
to put it.
In like the chemical reactions of frescoes.
Yeah.
Which is that's a cool thing to be fluent in.
It was a great class. Okay, so say what we were just talking about is we were exploring like Colin's like third factor thing. So how do we compare what we were just talking about? And it seems goofy because one is clearly a lot more complex than the other one. How do we compare that to, if it exists, the third factor of something like AI, or just the input-output of AI? Of like, when you talk about all of that, it seems almost like a little bit ridiculous.
I don't know if I fully know what you mean.
If we're talking about like processing, so we'll say all of that goes on between input and output. So we get information in, and what you were just saying, how you think and your systems of thinking then lead to eventually like an output or a creation. If we imagine that AI doesn't have any of that, like any of, you know, Maida's little projector screen and a tier list and a constellation line stuff of like, it almost seems kind of ridiculous to compare.
So part of the third factor is the deeply unknown, weird, wild ways in which we think.
Yeah.
The Wild West of the brain.
That is so spooky. And also well put, like the completely unknown.
Which is, because we like to...
It's like the ocean.
Yeah.
It's like the ocean.
It's like the ocean. It's all deep and dark, and we don't really know what goes on.
Like, especially in like the Western world, we like to believe like we understand how the brain works. We know how kind of like pictures, words. It's one of those, or like speaking, like. But
you fall into these categories.
We forget how
it's like
crazy
we don't
amounts
really
of
know
things.
What's going on in there.
Yeah, we have no idea for so much of it.
Man. That's really interesting stuff. Colin, what have you been thinking about?
Sorry, my microphone.
I think what I've been thinking about kind of connects to when you said you daydream a bunch.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, ooh.
I'm a notorious daydreamer, especially as a kid, and I think it's interesting how easy it is for the devil to use that early on in life, especially.
Ooh, interesting. Like
use daydream, like tempt you to like, you know, use daydream to think about sinful thoughts, not pay attention in class, teacher calls you out, and then as a result, getting, you know, to me, daydreaming has a negative connotation to it.
Right. I
think that's because, you know,
I agree with that.
Associated with, you know, not paying attention to what you should be doing. Then as a result, I think as a kid, then it was a negative connotation to at all just sit and like wander with your thoughts.
Right.
And I almost had to kind of like relearn that for a little bit. Like just the idea of sitting with your thoughts and letting them wander to whatever.
So do you daydream now?
I would say more so now, especially like in the car.
Yeah.
A lot.
There are a lot of times when it really comes in handy. I always daydream before I go to bed. Awesome. Great experience.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
But it's like I have to reframe, because there's one side of my brain that's like, oh, you have to be like productive with this time. Like you shouldn't just be wandering around with your thoughts. You should have a goal with your thoughts, or you should be actively doing something.
Yeah.
And I have to kind of fight that, because often when I daydream, that's when I learn things about myself, or I flesh out concepts that I've been trying to think about more often, or come up with an idea for a new piece of art. So I'm just trying to fight that, like even fit, like, because I'm almost paying attention to myself physically. I am just sitting here.
Right.
Like, to the outside observer, I'm just doing nothing. But internally, it feels like I'm doing a lot.
Yeah. Are there any other things either of you have felt that you did when you were a kid and that you had to relearn? Because I feel like I've been seeing a couple of things about, like, well, there's this one article that is by a poet that's talking about, like, kids are the best poets because they don't know how to talk correctly yet. And so usually they use words in ways that are really interesting and unique because they don't know that word can't normally mean that. And so if you want to be a poet, sometimes a really good thing to do is to look back and relearn how you thought about things when you were a kid. So, I don't know. Is there anything else like that you can think of that you've had to relearn since being a kid? Or kids are really good at just creating with just they just don't care at all. Especially with art. Like, especially with drawing and painting. Of, like, when you're kids, everyone's doing the craft. Everyone's drawing with the crayons. Nobody cares. Because it's just, like...
There's no pressure.
Exactly. And I don't think I've ever recaptured that feeling. Ever.
I think I've started to with, like, moving to a place where I don't know very many people. Like, I kind of touched on that, but... Like, there's just so much less of my brain taken up by, like, the people who are going to see this thing. And I do spend time with kids over there. Like, I teach some art lessons. And, like, the littlest kid that I teach, he's probably, like, 3 or 4. Incredibly curious and, like, completely, what's it called? Uninhibited? Yeah, like, just he took a bunch of sheets of paper and some tape and just started taping this long train of sheets of paper. No particular goal, no apparent goal in sight. And I think a lot of people would see that as maybe wasteful, but it brought him so much joy to learn how to tear off that tape. He just loved it. And I see that and I admire that, and I've been trying to get back to that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's easier being in a space where I have the most supportive art friends in the entire world, but even just knowing that there are other people that will see it, there's just something different about being you know what, probably nobody is ever going to see this sheet of paper.
Yeah, juxtapose that, that true, just awesome joy with the internet, social media telling you look how awesome it is when all these people look at your thing and like it. Look at all these other people who are making things. Don't you want to be like them? That kid isn't looking at Instagram all day looking at other artists.
True. That kid doesn't care who sees that.
Yeah.
Paper taped to paper.
Yeah, that was very much how I was too as a kid making things. It was what do I just think would be so awesome to make right now? And then I feel that's some of my happiest memories making things is kind of beginning of high school era making little video skits with my friends, purely just what do we think is hilarious and awesome. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the thesis of my last film was I just want to get back to that. What can I make that I if I'm the only person in the audience, what would I love to see right now? Mm-hmm. And obviously along the way with editing and stuff, you do kind of think about audience. It would be good if this is coherent for other people.
Right.
But leaving at the baseline of getting back to that kid's joy you were talking about, because that's just such an awesome feeling.
Mm-hmm. And he still has joy in sharing it, but the joy in sharing it comes from the fact that he thinks it's so fun that he knows other people will think it's fun, or at least he thinks other people.
And that
will
usually
think it's
shows
fun.
in the work as well.
Yeah, it's contagious. Mm-hmm. I'm excited about those sheets of paper taped together. I think it's awesome. He's having a great time. Yeah, it goes all around the room. He made a little train. It's great.
Yeah, and you're not oh well, it's not accurate to this model train.
Yeah, or we could have used that paper for something else.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel that's something we should maybe touch on a bit, because I know that's something you've been thinking about, Colin, is, the way I phrased that of that's something that could be used for something else.
Ooh.
Prompted the thought in my head of how much you, Colin, have been talking about when Mary poured perfume on Jesus' feet and Judas was upset, that could have been used in a more efficient way. We could have sold that so that we could give money to the poor or something, and that wouldn't be a bad use of it, but she chose to pour out her gift on Christ, and that's also a good use of it. Mm-hmm. And for that kid he'll just draw a couple scribbles on a sheet of paper, so much joy, so excited, and I think that is a good use of his time. I think that's a great use of his time. Mm-hmm. Where it would still be a good use of his time to be, I don't know, very intentionally learning or studying. It would be nice if he learned a little bit of English, because then he and I could speak the same language. Yeah. And that would be cool. Or I could learn some Chinese, but I think it's maybe more beautiful for him to just partake in the joy that God has provided him a life that includes paper and crayons and time to use them. That's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah, so that section of scripture is very often talked about by Makoto Fujimura, Christian artist, and he says he'll the Fujimura himself will be told by architects about how they'll be building a beautiful church space or a beautiful statue, a beautiful painting for a space, and then someone will say same thing, oh, we could use that money for the poor, we could use this. And obviously that is very much a factor we should think about. How can we use our money to support the poor? How can we do all things and such? But if my talent is that I'm making documentaries, or Maida's is to make a beautiful piece of artwork about David or all this or that, why wouldn't I make that? Even if the influence, we were talking about, isn't directly seen. Right. Like we aren't able to directly see the influence of how that's going to work.
It can still affect people, and God can work through it. And also, like, I just think about, like, Old Testament offerings. Like, people would burn their first fruits as, like, an offering to him, like a pleasing aroma. And that's not practical.
Yeah.
Like, it's a gift. It's a valuable thing that you're sacrificing for him.
Yeah. It's nice to hear you also talk about if this is what I'm good at, it's probably what I should be doing. Because I feel like we're also kind of at that age when, like, people in different career fields than us are really getting into it, of, like, they're like doctors who, like, I know Misha talked about this a lot on her episode, but that are clearly helping people and clearly making the world a better place. Sometimes it can be hard, and especially something I've been thinking about lately, to justify for me, like, this painting is, well, I'm gonna be an artist. I would like to be an artist when I grow up, and, like, that's what I want my career to be. And it's not, like, distinctly helping people, I guess. But then when I think about, like, what all of us can do and have clearly been given the gifts to do, it's like the parable of the talents, right? Of, like, what did you do with what I gave you?
Yeah.
And, like, did you just ignore it? Did you just, like, bury it in the ground because you thought that wasn't what I was about? Like, I made you be good at that for a reason.
It's like to say that that's inherently useful is then to question God and to tell God, like, hey, you gave me these gifts wrongly, or these these aren't, or saying arrogant, or saying these gifts aren't from you, they're from sin. There's a show out right now called The Studio on Apple TV Plus. Essentially, there's an episode where a movie studio executive goes with his girlfriend to a fancy dinner with a bunch of other doctors, and all the doctors are kind of mocking him. They're like, "We save lives. What do you do?" And he's like, "Yeah." We work in hospitals and save lives." And then the studio executive says, "Well, when the patient's recovering from that surgery, what's on the wall? A TV." And I feel like most people making things aren't even thinking about that. They're not thinking, "Oh, this is going to help surgery patients."
Right. You know? I mean, there's that really good quote from the movie The Dead Poets Society that's like, like medicine and accounting probably, like, these help us to stay alive. Like, these practices help us to stay alive. But, like, music and art and poetry and beauty, like, this is why we stay alive. Which is so good. That's a great movie.
That's interesting. I was just looking, my mom showed me this thing that was, it was like maybe the National Gallery in London or something. But there's a big museum, and they were holding an exhibit of tons of, like, sketches and little paintings and artworks made by soldiers. And, like, I don't know what war it was, but during one of the wars, there was a tent set up for soldiers to go and, like, draw and paint in as kind of like a relief, like a mental relief time. And there are quotes from the soldiers, like, because there was, like, a guest book, basically, where the soldiers can write their name and the date, and they would write a little thing, and some of the quotes are like, "This is what we're fighting for." Like, so that we can have lives that include, like, things like this. That's awesome. I think, I know, it's like, it's very beautiful because it's looking beyond just survival, and beyond just, like, like getting to live, but then, like, getting to enjoy living this life on Earth. Or getting to really dig in and, like, think about living this life on Earth.
Which is worth it.
There's a part during like the pretty common responsive prayer that we say during a lot of Lutheran church services, where it's like the pastor says, like, please bless medicine and science, arts and culture, people whose work is difficult or dangerous, And usually during that time, I think about like, wow, like there's a lot of people with very niche interests. And like, there's people who built this podcast equipment. There's people who are tracking air quality right now. There are people who are like doing all these crazy things that are also integral to all parts of our lives that we don't even know about. Yeah. And so it's like, if we're valuing all of that, why not value the arts in that way too?
Right. But that's a really good point as well.
So it's just like cool to think about, like, I can be really niche in this, and then someone else can be really niche in like bridge safety, or someone else can be niche in like book curating at a library. Like, it's awesome that God built us in that way with different brains, different ways of thinking, like we were talking about.
Yeah, that all ends up.
I kind of think too about like different time spans of like the effect that you have. Like, a doctor is doing good and saving someone during like their lifespan, you know? And a piece of artwork can survive beyond your lifespan, or like equipment that you build, like a bridge that you build can survive past your lifespan. So like you may not see very immediate effects the way that a surgeon might, but like there may be long lasting effects of like many generations are influenced by this and hopefully benefit from this.
Yeah.
Yeah, what have I been thinking about? I've been thinking about culture shock. I talked about this a little bit with you.
Yeah, you should talk about this.
I think, so, like, Colin and I moved pretty much as far away from America as we could be, I guess. Not necessarily on purpose that far, but, like, we moved to be art missionaries in Thailand, and part of that was having very specific training for like what to expect with culture shock and what to do when you start to feel those like overwhelming or frustrating or really just mostly confused feelings. And I recently went on a camping trip with a bunch of friends, and we all hadn't seen each other in like a year. And so we all kind of caught up with like, how's the past year gone? And everybody else had also gone through culture shock. And like, some people had left the state, some people had left the country, and some people were still at the same school they were at a year ago. But, like, that change, they had the same feelings and same reactions that I felt to, you know, different varying degrees in each person in each situation, but this similar feelings as, like, me feeling lost in the grocery store in Chiang Mai, not knowing like what anything means. And I kind of wish that like that training came with just like graduation or like any job or any, and now like too, we just got married, and now there's like entering the new culture of like another family, you know, like I'm entering your family's culture and you've been entering my family's culture. And it really is a culture. Like, there's different accepted norms, there's different accepted priorities, and, like, there's just so many, like, almost micro culture shocks that are happening all the time.
Yeah, I feel like the training we got from Friends of Network on culture shock and prepping for culture shock should just be, like, taken by everyone.
Everybody should just have that, because I apply it all the time.
Because like you were saying, like I think up until that conversation you had with your friends, like, or at least until we came back to America to visit, our assumptions were we are the only ones feeling these emotions because we're in a different country. But then you realize like, oh wait, all your other friends are feeling this too. It's even though they're, you know, geographically closer to Bethany Lutheran College.
And the thing is, like, in some ways I feel like it was easier for me, even though it was, like, more extreme, because I was prepped for it and because I had those expectations set beforehand. Whereas, like, one of my friends, she moved to a different state, different city, got a job that she's surrounded by people that have grown up and live very differently than she ever has. And, like, she had nothing really preparing her for that. So it was more of a smack in the face for her than it was in some ways for me, I think.
Yeah, it's like, here's what's obviously something weird's going to happen with your brain when since 4 years old, you've been in a rigid school system that has a plan laid out for you. It has all of your circle within one building.
Obvious figures of authority that you should.
Yep. And then all of a sudden, when you graduate, boom, it's just like open air. So, and then, we were talking about with marriage too, with entering new family cultures too. Yeah.
Like, I think about those exercises we did in training sometimes. I'm like, wow, that was so useful.
Yeah, we were saying it would be nice if, like, in senior seminar, they had just, like, a couple of classes that were just talking about, like,
culture shock training.
These are the effects of when, even though life just, the nature of life is that it changes all the time, your body and brain are not good at dealing with changes.
Why don't we expect that? Like,
I don't even know!
There's nothing in life that, like, sets the tone that this will be stable. Like, you age, you change, like, your body changes, your mind changes.
Like, everything is changing constantly.
People around you change, and yet
we're like, so bad at it.
Why do I crave and expect that stability out of things?
Our brains are really good at, like, pretending like we have just complete stability.
But why? Like, where does that come? Is that like a longing for heaven thing of, like...
I have no idea. Or just...
Because what?
Yeah, Claire and I have talked about this before, of, like, a fantastic example of how, like, just completely rotted and sinful humans are is the fact that how our brains work is directly not in line with how the world works. Of that our brains crave and pretend and are used to things not changing, and yet we live in a world where everything is constant, except for God, everything changes.
Yeah. I think especially in college, like, two big thoughts in my mind were, like, once I get a job that I enjoy after college, then it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Then once I get married, then all my problems will go away. And now I have an awesome job and an awesome wife, and now I still have problems.
Yeah.
So it's like,
what happened?
It's like God giving me those things and being like, it's still not perfect.
Yeah.
Only God is unchanging, and only God can, like, satisfy those things.
Which is also funny because it's like, he also said, like, I'm gonna make it, if you think about it, as obvious as possible that I exist. Of the one thing that doesn't change is God. You know what I mean? That's kind of interesting too. Is that parallel of what the brain wants and what God is. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, that's true.
It's weird and cool.
Well, yeah, often, especially online, you'll see people evidently showing that what they want is, comfort on this earth, security on this earth. And we have to remind ourselves, like, God is free to give those things. He can give us some of those things, like nice blessings, but he does not guarantee it.
This earth is not it.
Exactly.
This is not the thing. This is not the end goal.
And that's been a big thing that's been on your mind, Maida, since moving overseas.
That's true. I've seen so much now, like, because so much changed for me, and I grew up in a very, like, stable environment. Like, I never experienced moving as a kid, and, like, I knew a lot of the people around me, had a really good support system. Then, like, when this big change happened, like, it became, like, I had said and logically understood that God is unchanging, in, like, memory work or, like, catechism class or creeds and things in church. Like, logically I could say that I understood that, but until I moved and I felt like the rug was, like, pulled out from under me and I could not get my bearings, I realized, like, wow, the only thing that has not changed in my life is the fact that God's word is the same. And it has the same effect because everything else changed.
Which I think is it's a blessing to get that disruption early. Yeah. I think it's from Screw Tape Letters. C.S. Lewis talks about, like, the road, like, you want disruptions in your life because they'll lead you back to God, whereas the road to hell is very slow and comfortable. So, like, getting that disruption early, like, it's a huge blessing for that to, like, follow with us.
It is. Like, I would say the move has been very difficult for me, and like I've struggled a lot with it, but in a way that I look at it and I'm so grateful because of like the position it's forced me into with God. Like I understand so much more about how big he is and how horrible I am and how horrible humans are in general, and how much I need to be saved and how much all people need, like how much we cannot do it ourselves. And like I don't want to go back to being comfortable but not fully comprehending that.
Right.
Because I can feel now, and like I have a bigger understanding now of how struggle and like quote unquote bad things happening are actually a lot of times some of the biggest blessings. And that's been a huge like turnaround in my brain.
I heard a pastor talk about a little bit ago about how Christianity is always going to thrive the most in like some of the poorest countries or poorest areas of the world because they don't have those physical material things blinding them, or like like America, pretty hard to be a Christian for some reason. Like one of the reasons it's harder to be a Christian in America is because you have so many things around you to distract you, so many things to give you that false confidence, that false hope,
comfortability.
You go to someone in a third world country and it's like they know like all they have is God.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like my sympathy, like my pity has changed direction, where I think I used to feel bad for people that like don't have very much or don't have very many things. And now it's just like if people don't have the gospel, and like you can have a very nice house, you can have a wonderful family, you can have loving friends, and if you don't have the gospel, like I pity that more than somebody who maybe is living out of a very small, home made out of like concrete bags and sticks. But like if they know that they're saved, like I still think that you can help to make life on earth better. I know that like Jesus did that. He came, he performed miracles, he healed people.
Right.
Like he did focus on people's health and well-being during this time on earth, but that focus was secondary. And like I see now how often too, like the comforts of having a nice home, having access to good things, quote unquote good things, actually does damage and like makes you because I think I've been too comfortable. And now like looking back, I'm like, wow, just like my comprehension has changed so much.
I recently when we were in Utah, I got to talk to there's a Wells Mission Church in Lehi, which is just outside of Salt Lake City, and it's like ridiculously Mormon. Like Lehi is from the Book of Mormon, like that name, and it was interesting just talking to them about like their mission work out there and who they're talking to, because like the more you learn about the Latter-day Saints, it's just like very sad, really. And he the pastor was talking about how everything that they do and everything that they hold to in the end is just completely empty, because it's not based on the right thing, right? It's not based on this truth that like Jesus saves people from their sins. Of like there's a lot of focus on high achievement and perfection in everything from what you do to how you look, which is why there's also a ton of plastic surgery in Utah. And so there's like this like they said it's a very like lonely ministry to be in out there, because it feels like it's just you in like this sea of people whose entire belief system and motivation in life and pretty much everything is just completely unfounded and like completely empty. And just like how strange it is to be in an environment like that in a place that seems very perfect. Because Salt Lake City is a beautiful, and like Lehi too, beautiful areas. Like obviously like giant mountains, super clean, low crime rate. But it's just so just
it's still off.
Like very like off. And it was really interesting to gain that perspective of them. Like I think that, you know, a lot, I mean, just how dangerous that kind of thing can be. And how much, experience like that can lend itself to a deeper comprehension of how much the gospel is the only thing that you need.
Comparing, then going back, to what God has for us versus what we think God does. Like, oh, wait, like, it's not anything I can do. Like,
yes.
That's such an innate human thing to, like, I hunt for food and I get food. Like, I work and then I get paid. Like, oh, wait, that's not computing with my normal brain chemistry. Like, so.
Yeah.
It's like we find ways of inventing, like, oh, if I do this, actually helps. Like, it just doesn't compute.
Yeah. That's weird. I mean, and once again, it's just, like, kind of outlining, like, how wrecked we are is that our brains are incompatible with essentially everything. Of, like, we can't fit with the world.
We're not.
Like, we've tried and it doesn't work. And then we also aren't compatible with what God wants from us or is trying to tell us about stuff. And so, like, it makes so much sense that it's the Holy Spirit working within us and nothing that we can do. Because clearly, nothing that we can do on our own fits with anything.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you know, here on earth as far as trying to make ourselves happy with those things or heavenly goals if we can never do it on our own, you know.
There's a verse, I don't remember where it is, but there's a verse in the Bible that says that God has set infinity in their hearts. Like, I think it's when it says, see, I am doing a new thing. And then it says God like set infinity in their hearts. And I kind of think of that when we talk about like our maybe craving for stability or things that like we expect. But like nothing on this earth is causing those expectations. Like God has put things in us that this earth doesn't provide.
Right.
It's craving for heaven. It's expecting.
Right.
Someday we'll go home. Like someday we'll actually be home in heaven, and maybe then like that's the place where some of those cravings actually get to come to fruition. Because then we will be in the presence of the unchangingness of God forever. And like I think that will be a beautiful thing. Like I don't think unchanging will mean boring. I think it will mean like
what we want.
Yeah, like the stable.
Finally being like satisfied. Yeah.
And that'll be like, and that'll be a state of feeling the most alive you could feel.
Yeah.
The most alive and the most, like, the deepest levels of satisfaction, which we haven't felt.
Which is crazy.
We were talked about in one of my communications classes. I remember one time we were talking about, Professor Kovic had said something about, like, I was talking to someone about what heaven will be like, and he had said something like, well, it's just going to be boring, because if you can create, like, in heaven, if you're doing, like, what you love, if you create a painting or something, like, very literal stuff. He was like, if you create a painting, there's just one perfect painting, like, the perfect painting that you can create, or the perfect movie that you can make. And he was like, I actually think that's, like, completely untrue, and that in a heavenly sense there will be infinite numbers of perfect paintings and perfect movies of, like, infinite perfection as compared to what we believe of perfection, which is maybe perfect, you know, accuracy or something.
Like, you see, like, all the different creatures God designed. Like, this is a God that loves variety, and he loves, like, a crazy range of variations, even within, one. Like, you look at just beetles, or just spiders, or just, like, frogs or something.
Right.
And, like, there's so much variation in that, like, tiny genre of creatures. And then there's so many creatures.
Yeah.
Like and you look at people, like we're all so different. I think he likes that.
Yeah.
Maida and I heard a children's sermon this past Sunday where the pastor's analogy was like, imagine making a little hole in the sand on a beach and then trying to fit the whole ocean in that hole. And he's like, oh yeah, that's like trying to fit all of God into our tiny little brains.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I can't hold it.
I think about that too with like thinking about heaven. It's like we can try to paint pictures of heaven and try to brainstorm about it, but it's like,
we just don't get it. We just don't know. There's like nothing in us that can understand.
It makes me so excited.
Me too.
I love daydreaming about that. I love thinking about what it'll be like. And I love hearing what other people think, because I've been surprised by like what different people expect. And like, because different people have different things that they find exciting or comforting. Like, I have one friend, she's described, like, when she pictures heaven, she just pictures, like, the biggest, longest hug ever. And it just, like, never ends. It's just a big hug. And other people picture, you know, like, beautiful trees and nature that you just get to walk through in the perfect temperature. And I feel like God will make room for all of these different things that, they won't be earthly things that we're doing, but I think he'll have ways that engage the interests that he gave us, because I think our interests, I kind of think of them as different like fractals of his image, you know, like we're made in the image of God. So I think like there's pieces of that in each of us, and that's kind of what makes us unique. Right.
I don't like it when people are like, I wonder if heaven will be like this, but then they'll say like, well, no, because that exists on earth, so it's probably not going to be in heaven. You know, it's probably not going to be like that. But if our minds can't actually get what heaven is like, I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, being like, this thing on earth makes me so happy. I bet heaven's going to be
heaven
like
will
that.
make me so happy.
And it's true. I mean, exactly.
It's a comparison.
It's like what you said. Yeah. Heaven is going to make me so happy. So, yeah. It's going to be like that, because you're going to be perfectly happy, you know?
And that's something that, like, you can hold it loosely. Like, you don't have to rip onto the fact that, like, heaven will have, like, beautiful fruit trees. But, like, you can think about it if it's something that makes you excited, you know?
Right.
Because I know somebody who talked about being not excited to go to heaven because they're like, everybody just like stands around and sings with harps and clouds.
That's what I was going to say. Of like, a
them.
lot of people have said like, oh, I'm not that excited because I don't want to like, I want to be married in heaven, or like I want to, and it's like, well, God said it was perfect happiness.
Yeah,
like,
so you got to think about things that make you happy and
what's
excited.
Something that makes you happy? Yeah,
and realize
that's what it's gonna be like.
It's gonna be a million times that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and then that also circles back to the media influencing our brains. Like all the pictures we see in like of heaven in like our school workbooks or at church on the wall, like that's our automatic assumption of heaven, almost over
with pillars and
over what Scripture says.
Right.
Yeah, right. So that's why artists got to be responsible too.
Yeah, like, which is what, like how the Dante's Inferno informed a lot of people's view of hell back when that came out.
Right.
And like how now. Like the devil, like the red guy with the pitchfork is how a lot of people envision Satan, like as a cartoonized, like not scary guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And then thinking about how we as artists can can help reroute.
Yeah. Like give people good mental vocabulary.
Yeah.
Right.
Like paint heaven as something that is exciting. Paint the devil as something that is terrifying.
Right.
Like, these are...
So, like, kind of try to break out of that.
Like the cliches of it.
Yeah. Circular family tree of human influence. And try to
But the thing is, we're, like, if we do that, like, we're going to be influenced by other things.
We literally can't, because
nothing new under the sun.
The best creations are the pinnacle of influence, like Colin was talking about. You can't escape human influence. And
you can't escape God influence.
Like, you can't escape God.
No matter what. You know, like I talked about Gaudi, like imitating nature. Like he's imitating how blades of grass stand. Like that's imitating God's hand. And that's the furthest back we can go. We can't. That's the deepest influence we can go back to.
And probably the most powerful, because that's really outside of us. You know?
Yeah.
Well, cool stuff. That was really interesting.
It's probably like a 5-hour episode.
Yeah.
How much room is on that SD card?
We've had longer ones than this. We're at like an hour 45, so that's not so very bad. Thank you guys so much for coming on and talking with me today.
Thanks for having a really fun.
Thank you.
That was lovely. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for listening, readers. See you later. And that concludes this episode of Whistle the Feast. We hope you enjoyed being a part of the conversation as much as we did. Whistle the Feast would not be possible without all the creative people and spaces at Bethany Lutheran College. And you can head on over to blc.edu to learn more about the college or schedule a visit. If you have thoughts, questions, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. You can actually send any feedback about the show to feastreaders@gmail.com. A huge shout out to the wonderful people in our Bethany community for sharing their thoughts with us, and our producer Jaksyn Graham for managing the edits. And with that, I'm Norah Kratz alongside Jason Jaspersen, and we want to thank everyone who tuned into this episode of Whistle the Feast. Until next time.
Get curious, be of good service, and discover what God has given you.